Hello, darlings and darlets. How are you doing? Today I'm going to talk about Babylon falling, and I'm going to share with you something that I had to watch that made me feel between physically sick and very annoyed. We'll talk about it on the other side. So I don't know what you think about the messages that are happening around us. The emissary said to me as I was talking to them, are you aware of the messages that you're hearing? And they give me all of these messages, and yes, I am. And all the messages are, the old world is falling. Do you know where I hear this? When I listen to all of the astrologers. They're talking about this period of time never before seen. Are we entering into a period of time never before seen? And where they all talk about the dinosaur of the past falling. The old world falling, the beginning of something new. Okay? Not the New World Order, because that's just the old dinosaur still running along. No, something very different. The message I keep hearing is that the elites are losing. They've lost. They're losing. They're falling. They're losing grip. They're panicking. I've been saying that because the emissaries were saying it for a long time, but it never really manifested in the way that it is now. Everybody's talking about it. Like everybody is talking out about what's happening. They're being exposed left, right and centre. And obviously, you know, that it's lifting the rock and seeing the horribleness underneath. They're never like that. They've always hidden themselves. They've always been in the darkness. That was the point. And now the light's on and they're being pointed at and they're being looked at and laughed at, and they're on the way out. So that's the message that I'm hearing everywhere. Just to give you an example, but remember, oh, by the way, remember what the emissary said, that we hear one message and the other group hears another message, which is exactly the opposite. And so, for example, the World Economic Forum, bless them. Bless them. They get together every year and decide what they're going to do with us. And this year they got together, except there was just a different feel from what I saw and my perspective. Okay, this different feel where many of them were talking about the failure of the plan. Even somebody said, you know, a few years ago, we were talking about you will eat bugs and you will have nothing and you'll be happy. And he said, and that now is a dinosaur or something like that. That was his words. It's like finished. But he wasn't like on our side. He was on their side. But they're recognizing that what they did, they pushed it too quickly, too fast, too horrible, too stupid. And it's rejected now. Add to that the Trump was there telling them about the, you know, to get rid of the wind farms, they're ruining everything, stop immigration, and that the elections in 2020 were stolen and that people are going to be arrested.
2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did.
Okay. Whether the people are being arrested or not, I don't know. But it was a different message. There was another American there that told them off. He just told them off.
Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. Our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty.
He just said that they were wrong and they had it wrong and they needed to change. I've never seen that before. We used to say a long time ago, our voices are too small. We need people who matter, the big fish, to speak out. That's what's happening now. The big fish are speaking out, and we've got to really take stock of how far we've come. We had no voice. In fact, we were silenced. Our voices were silenced, and now suddenly, if you look in the US, Florida, I listened to the guy, the health guy of Florida, I can't remember, something general, Surgeon General or whatever he's called, saying nobody will be forced to take a vaccine.
Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body, is because of your relationship with your body and your God.
It's old hat. It's old hat. We've been saying that for years. But now big voices are speaking out, and it's absolutely beautiful. So that's, what I'm saying. Babylon is falling, and this is the message. And it's not from us diehards who've been saying it forever. It's from people who haven't spoken out before, and now are speaking out. And then there was a guy who used to be the director of, the Food and Drink, FDA, okay? The FDA, I think he was called. And he was talking about them, right? He's the ex-director of the FDA who left like a week after the pandemic started. The things that he said.
The vaccine should have never been mandated. It wasn't never meant to prevent transmission. It didn't prevent transmission. Probably was a misnomer to call it a vaccine. It's really more like a medicine. It doesn't stop infection. Children should have never been vaccinated. People shouldn't have been mandated to be vaccinated to go to school and work. The mRNA was a new technology. It hadn't, we don't know all of the potential negative consequences. I'll say this briefly because I see the timer. When I give you an mRNA vaccine, and I've talked to the FDA and others about this, when I give you an mRNA vaccine, I don't know how much spike protein you make. I turn you into a spike protein factory. I think the FDA should know how much protein do you make.
It just went on. And the guy, when I look at him, reminds me of the guy who did the autopsies in Sandy Hook.
They're up all on the second floor, and I didn't get there today. My sensibilities may not be the average man.
He was weird, that guy. He was weird. That laughter that he had when he was being asked questions. So bloody weird. Anyway, so all of these things are just being said like, whoa, out there. Things that we've been waiting for a long time to hear. The difficulty is, on the other side, the World Economic Forum was an absolute success to them. It was fantastic, and yes, and AI is the future, and blah, 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 and wow, face recognition, and yeah, everybody's going to be happy. So there are like two different narratives that come out of it. Our narrative, which is for our pathway, and their narrative. And it's so equal and opposite in terms of, was it this or was it this? It doesn't matter. For us, it was this. And that's what we have to focus on, is the message that comes for us. Because there are two messages, and there always will be, and they will become more and more disparate, these messages. Which brings me to the next bit. I was sitting in a bar. My son on a Friday now has 2 hours of flute playing with a band from 8 till 10. So what do? Well, we sit in the bar downstairs waiting, and I have a cup of tea. And I just happened to be seated right in front of a television screen. And on the television screen just happened to be the news. And I had the misfortune of watching. There was no noise, but you don't need noise when you're watching the news because the titles tell you everything. I had to watch the news. It was one of the channels, Channel 5 here in Spain. And I watched the man talking. Now, you know that newsreaders aren't newsreaders, they're just actors who read. Yeah? And They're not journalists by any means, by a long chalk. They're just people who read stuff. They're all trained, and it's always been the same. Now, you notice I've got a jacket on. I'm not wearing a jacket to impress you. I'm wearing a jacket because it's fucking freezing, okay? And that's all. But I haven't got a tie on. But these people are dressed, they're dressed to look like they know what they're talking about. This guy, I don't know who taught him these gestures, but I was watching the gestures, and obviously, I do therapy, and I've done all kinds of analysis of people and gesture analysis and stuff like that, body language. And his gestures, as he was talking, were this. This is what he did most times, like this or like this. Now, what is this? These are limits. These are limits, and it's like, this is the information I'm giving you. Don't go outside of the information. This is it. And that's the gestures that he used all of the time, and the voice. I couldn't hear the voice, but I know what the voice is. It's a voice like this. And they use the technique of dipping down at the end, which is a hypnotic technique, which is, I'm going to talk and then I'm going to finish in a deeper voice. Because what I'm telling you is the truth. And so all you have to do is do exactly what I'm telling you. Okay? So that's what hypnotic voice is, like this. Low anyway, but then dipping down. And he was doing all of that. And then he was sitting at his desk, right? Now the desk, to me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a little bit of that, but underneath it looked like a shopping trolley from Asda or from Mercadona here. It just looked weird. But he's sitting at this desk, okay? And he's chatting, and honestly, the news went on for about an hour. He was sitting at his desk. I kept coming back to him. And on his desk, he had some papers. On the left-hand side, he had some papers that looked like had graphs on, or whatever. And on the other side, he just had some papers that had writing on. And then next to the papers, he had a pen. And he talked for an hour. He never looked at those fucking papers. He never touched the fucking papers. He never flipped them. He didn't do anything. Nothing. The paper and the pen were there just to give the presence of information of somebody who knows, somebody who has official information. He never once looked at his papers. What happened? When I was looking for other videos, I found other videos. Same fucking papers, different days, same fucking papers. They haven't even bothered to change the paper. The only thing that changed was his tie. That's the only thing that's different. He has a different tie on each time. Same paper, same desk, same pen, everything. Never touched. In fact, I don't think that they even bother to clean that desk. They just leave the papers there for the next time. Don't touch those papers, because that makes them look official. And that is the tricks of the trade of news people. I just tell you this, and I will look very serious, and you will listen, and I will tell you that Trump is bad. That's what they were doing that night. Trump this, Trump that, Trump the other. Loads of lies. They said, what are the things they were saying? Trump wants Greenland. Right? I don't know anything about that. I don't even understand it, okay? Trump wants Greenland. They said, but Europe is very angry, and all of the European countries have sent troops to Greenland to protect it, okay? And they were showing images of planes taking up warplanes, warships, and loads of troops and everything. Just random stuff that they've, back catalogue images. And then I saw the next day the number of troops that had been sent. And you could count them on two hands. Like, from each country. I think the biggest amount of troops sent by one of the countries was 15. But some of them were just one. They just sent one. And on the news, there were like planes and trains and automobiles and tanks and everything. Fucking bunch of lying bastards. That's what they are. That's what they are. And so that's why 22 years ago I switched the TV off. I've never put it on. And when I have to sit and watch it, it gets, you see how worked up I am? I'm worked up because they're a bunch of lying, stinking, monkey bastards. That's what they are. However, now I feel better after having shared that with you. I hope I haven't wound you up enough to go and put, a sledgehammer through a TV. No, just don't watch the fucking news. I love you all. Put in the comments if you've had the misfortune of watching the television and what it was that you saw that knocked your duck off, like what it did me. I love you all and I'll speak to you all later. Bye bye.